I was born with a strange gift. The ability to see what no human being has ever seen before.
Beyond Two Souls is another cinematic experience brought to us by David Cage, the same mind who gave us Indigo Prophecy and Heavy Rain. So I already had an idea of what to expect. Lots of cutscenes and lots of QuickTime events. But I didn't expect it to be this much of a mess. You play as Ellen Page as Jodie, a girl with a special ghost friend named Aiden who is constantly connected to her. You play using a mixture of dialogue options, QuickTime events, and activating Aiden to use his ghost abilities to assist Jodie. The choices given to you in dialogue and action scenes are very superficial, as they have no actual impact on the outcome of any situation. The different dialogue choices may give you some slightly different information than you otherwise would have, but those details are almost always needless and are quickly forgotten. Again, it does not change the outcome of scenes. Even outright refusing to do something will still result in Jodie relenting and doing it anyway. The action moments are the same as well. At times, the game will go into slow motion, and you need to hit the right analog stick in the right direction to succeed the QuickTime event. In an effort to make the game more interesting, the game doesn't outright tell you what direction to point. Instead, you point in the direction that you think you see Jodie moving, which is a neat idea so that you pay attention. But oftentimes, you can't tell what direction you're supposed to click. Other times, the instinct is to point in the direction of the danger to react to it, which results in the QuickTime event failing. It kind of gives conflicting information from where the game wants you to click to what you want to click. But since failing doesn't have any kind of impact, there's no incentive to actually succeed any of them. In fact, I replayed a few scenes and put the controller down and did nothing, and the outcome was exactly the same as succeeding. I knew Beyond was going to be heavily scripted, but I didn't think it's going to be this scripted. Using Aiden's ghost abilities is the only real interesting thing the game has going for it, and those abilities are completely limited by what the game tells you can do with them. Some enemies you can outright kill, others you can't. Some enemies you can possess, others you can't. There's no explanation for this, so rather than being able to experiment with your powers to get out of sticky situations, you have to follow down an extremely linear path. There is no room for creativity. Sadly, the best times you get to use your powers are in two spots. One is a CIA mission in which you can distract guards so that Jodie can take them out. It's still restricted and scripted, but the idea itself was cool. I would have liked to see more of this stealth-style gameplay instead of the one mission it happens in. There's also another moment later in the game in which you need to lead a few friendly characters to where Jodie is, and you do that by interacting with objects so that they know where to follow. Again, very simplistic, but this is at least a step in the right direction for how the Ghost gameplay could be interesting. But these are the only two instances in which it happens. Any fun is removed from controlling Aiden, the main draw of the game. On top of that, actually using him is a very disorienting affair, and almost all the actions done with him consist of flicking both analog sticks or pulling or pushing them together. And there are a few moments when his abilities just come off as lame instead of powerful. It's also really hard to feel the tension in any of the action sequences, as the game shows you very early on that Aiden can protect Jodie with the magical ghost force field. So anytime that Jodie's in danger, it doesn't really matter because you know, at the very least, he can just protect her from everything, killing any amount of tension they could possibly build. Beyond Two Souls is not a good game by any stretch of the imagination. I actually think I liked Heavy Rain's gameplay more, because at least there your actions had consequences and could dramatically alter the plot, whereas Beyond has no such thing. It's barely a game, as it very clearly wants to be a movie. So then let's start over. Let's wipe away the fact that it's a game and instead look at it as a movie. As a movie, Beyond Two Souls is bad. It barely has a plot and it doesn't know what it's doing with itself. I can say it's pretty well acted, especially compared to Heavy Rain. The motion captured cutscenes look pretty good and are well animated, although in-game movements are still stilted and robotic, breaking the immersion a bit. The writing is still very poor, with some very cringe-inducing lines, but at least they're said with conviction. But it's the plot and the characters that are Beyond's biggest faults. The characters all lack depth, with no development given to any of them throughout its course. You'll meet several side characters who are all given a single trait, like cartoon characters, and are then quickly forgotten. Any development that happens to them is told to you rather than shown, which is a big no-no in storytelling. For example, Jodie has a date with a male character and she gives a big speech to Aiden about how he's kind and caring and funny and she's falling in love with him, where in every other scene we've seen him in before this, he was a total unlikable dickhead. Even Willem Dafoe's character goes through a sudden dramatic change near the end that he spells out for you in a monologue instead of seeing gradual development. And this is all because of David Cage's choice of using non-linear storytelling. Events do not happen in order. So many of these sequences are worthless, as they have no bearing on the overall plot whatsoever. Every chapter feels so segmented and unrelated to each other. It feels like they just thought of several exciting situations to put Jodie in, and then used the time jumping to thrust her into these situations without having to explain how she got there using, good writing or plot. One moment she's a CIA agent, the next she's a homeless person delivering a baby, then saving that baby from a burning building. Then she's an emo girl shredding a wicked guitar solo fueled by rage, and the next she's in the Navajo desert. Sadly on its own, the Navajo desert is one of the better moments in the game, but again, it has nothing to do with the overall story the game is trying to tell. There are too many loose threads that are never explained. The main story is about Jodie's times as a CIA agent. Everything else is just filler. During some of these CIA missions, you'll meet characters that have nothing to do with anything, or they'll even set up a potential threat that is never seen again. By the end of it all, the only sequences that actually consist of the main plot is seen in the last 3 chapters or so, which means you'll need to play through about 75% of the game before something that matters happens. And those last few sequences get kinda wacky. Overall, Beyond isn't very good. The presentation is a huge step up from Heavy Rain, with good cutscenes and much better acting, but the gameplay is worse, with inconsequential actions and underwhelming ghost powers. The plot takes way too long to establish itself, and by the time it does, it's hard to care anymore. It's all very disappointing. Beyond Two Souls earns a 4 out of 10. It's not a game worth buying at all, as you can easily beat it in just a few sittings. If you are interested in the game, just rent it. And with that, you can at least see virtual Ellen Page in her underwear? She looks like a boy.